The following is rated not safe for work. It contains strong language, adult situations, and lots of spoilers. Discretion is advised.
In the criminal justice system, cinematic-based offenses are considered especially heinous. The dedicated attorneys who investigate these villainous films are members of an elite squad known as the Reels of Justice. These are their stories.
Order, please, order. The Reels of Justice is now in session. Judge Big Ben Haslar presiding. We all rise for the Honorable Judge Haslar. Be seated. Welcome to the Reels of Justice. Today we are hearing the case of the people, or no, we are not. We are hearing the case of Toy Story 2 versus Toy Story 4. Let me take that again.
Okay.
Today we are hearing the case of dang it, it's just in my vocabulary. Last time, I
keeping up
swear.
with this now.
The toy people.
Take 3.
Today we are hearing the case of Toys. Oh, well, you stepped over my line. Today we are...
Take 4.
Quiet you. Today we are hearing the case of Toy Story 2 versus Toy Story 4.
Easy
Nailed
for you
it.
to say.
Toy Story 2 tells the story of Sheriff Woody, who must be rescued by his friends and fellow toys after being kidnapped by a nefarious toy collector. Toy Story 4 once again follows Woody as he and his friends set out on a journey to reunite their child Bonnie with her favorite new toy, the handmade Forky. For those of you unfamiliar with our court proceedings, in civil cases like this, the counsel is appointed to represent each film and will present their case as to which is the superior film. And ultimately, the jury will render its verdict as to which is better. The decision will hereby stand in all rankings and listicles from now on till the end of time ad infinitum. Mr. You have a friend in me, Ryan Luis Rodriguez.
No.
You are appearing on behalf of Toy Story 2. You may present your opening statement.
Not the line.
Masterpiece. Let that sink in. Today we're arguing over a masterpiece. And Toy Story 4. An honest-to-God American classic. And Toy Story 4. A life-affirming film that defied all odds from the conceptual phase through the physical production to not only exist, but exist so vibrantly, exist so luminously within the cinematic canon, not just animation, the entire canon. And we're also talking about Toy Story 4. But seriously, folks, it's really not fair to compare and contrast 2 to 4. One is so amazing at a cellular level, and the other is a perfectly serviceable, even very good film with more than its share of problems. If we were arguing over whether or not Toy Story 4 was good, that's a seemingly easy case to make. Yes, it is. But it is not Toy Story 2 good. Nothing is, really. Nothing else Pixar has ever done, and nothing that has been done in the animated field since. Perfection is supposed to be unattainable. Supposed to be. Yet Toy Story 2 is. It's something that I never tire of returning to, and whether or not I do a good job communicating it remains to be seen, but I'm glad I got the chance. Thank you. Case dismissed.
Nya, nya, nya.
Not quite yet, Mr.
Well,
Rodriguez.
my expectations are way up now. This is great.
Appearing on behalf of Toy Story 4, it's Bouncin Bobby LePire. Please present your opening statement.
Dear plastic dinosaurs, barrel monkeys, Barbies, and combat Carls of the court. A Pixar movie is in this courtroom? What is this? What are we talking about? The Good Dinosaur? Well, that can't be the case, because no one on Earth would defend that movie. However, without a doubt, this is the most difficult case I've had the privilege of being a part of. Why? Because Toy Story 2 is a great film. It's so good that had it come from any other major animation studio, Illumination, Blue Sky, DreamWorks, it'd probably be the best thing they'll ever make. However, within its own franchise, it's the worst one. I'll prove why in due course and properly explain why TS4 is a true conclusion to the series. But bear in mind, while Toy Story 4 is the best Toy Story film, it isn't even the best Pixar film overall. But note that much like my successful case in favor of The Village, the power of love is a curious thing that moves people, or toys in this case, in unexpected ways.
Thank you, Mr. LePire. Mr. Rodriguez, you may present your first exhibit.
For my first exhibit, I don't want to make a comparison, just an argument. As I just mentioned, Toy Story 2 is a masterpiece. It is a structural masterpiece. Without even getting to how it looks, it is elegant and flawless in how it parses out information and gives every principal member of the cast something distinct and important to do. They know exactly what to tell the viewer and when it should be told and how it should be told at every single moment. When Pixar began making the original Toy Story, nobody involved knew a thing about story structure, so they looked to the writings of Robert McKee for their inspiration. And just 2 films later, they crafted a screenplay that should be studied in narrative classes in film schools until the end of time. It nails the sense of the mundane and the fantastic within the mundane, and vice versa, that made the original film so clever, but amplified to a scope of at least 3 times larger. Several lines of dialogue and story beats exist only to set up something else in motion, yet it never feels like a tee up. Often the information being communicated will sound like a non sequitur or be couched in a gag, only to reveal itself as a setup once whatever it's setting up arrives, which is not a skill that comes easily, much less coalesces only 4 years after writing your very first screenplay. The film was originally supposed to last only an hour for Disney's direct-to-video division, and it wasn't until a year and a half before the release that the distributor made the decision to bump it up to a theatrical debut, which means that they had to add 10 to 15 minutes of material that had to feel organic to the rest of the picture without coming off as what it was, padding. Then, 9 months before the release date, John Lasseter and the creative team completely overhauled the film from the bottom up, meaning everything you saw was produced in just 3/4 of a year. By that logic, characters should disappear at random intervals, stray dialogue from scenes should be hanging out for all to gape at, the narrative messy and undisciplined. It should be a disaster instead of this crystalline work of beauty.
Well, thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Mr. LePire, do you have a rebuttal? Do you think Toy Story 4 is the more masterpiece?
I do. A lot of that will be presented as I'm going through my particular case. In this regard, my esteemed colleague states that all the characters are given something to do. It's all the characters who go on the adventure are given something to do. Toy Story 2 puts Woody away when he's stolen by Al of Al's Toy Barn. And so Buzz, Rex, Potato Head, and Slinky Dog go after him. The other toys are shunted off, and occasionally we cut back to them, but they offer very little bearing on most of this. Bo has 1 or 2 scenes, maybe. And the other toys that we got to know throughout the course of the first movie who aren't on this expedition have nothing to do.
So there's Bo and who else? Name names, Mr. LePire.
I don't remember their names, but the Plastic Army Men, who come in very handy throughout the first movie and are utilized very well in that film. They, I can't recall a single thing they do in this one.
And they take off at Toy Story 3, right? At the beginning.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Rodriguez, present your next exhibit.
Toy Story is a franchise rich in villainy. Whether it's Sid in the first film or Lotso in the third, and Toy Story 2 outdoes both films by doubling down. There are 2 outstanding antagonists. You have Al McWiggin, the owner of Al's Toy Barn, who steals Woody in order to sell him to a Japanese museum, based on John Lasseter, not a joke, and stealth second act villain Stinky Pete, who is the mirror opposite of Woody. Woody was always the star of his own show. Kids wanted nothing more than to have him for their own, but nobody wanted Stinky Pete, leaving him stuck in the box. And since these movies are told from the perspective of toys, could there possibly be a worse fate than remaining unspoiled? If what you're made for is to be played with, what are you if you never achieve your true purpose? And if you've existed for as long as Woody, without a single physical encounter, have you ever truly lived? That sense of feeling unwanted and upstaged metastasizes in Stinky Pete, making him the most dangerous adversary the toys have ever faced. We don't know what he's capable of or what lengths he'll go to preserve the status quo because he has both nothing and everything to lose simultaneously. Now let's look at Toy Story 4. Here we have Gabby Gabby, a toy whose voice box is broken and therefore is unsuitable for adoption from the antique store. She's easily the weakest point of the entire film, presented as this sinister sociopath for half of the movie until she gets what she wants and we're supposed to feel something for her, I think.
Objection? How is she a sociopath at any point in that movie? She is presented somebody who knows exactly what she wants, is maybe a little too demanding on it, but she's not a sociopath.
I completely disagree. I think that she completely, yes, she knows what she wants, but she's so manipulative in ways that she's pulling the strings behind the scenes, but she's so nakedly transparent.
Pulling the strings, huh?
But anyway, as I was saying, we're supposed to instantly forgive her for whatever she did, if she did anything, question mark. It's not a redemption, it's a switch flip. It's not that easy to be redeemed, but she's the villain, yet she's not the villain in the second half of the movie, and I still don't really get how that works. I have no idea if she was a casualty of the fragmented production process, where again, the entire movie was overhauled after a significant amount of time in the wake of John Lasseter's dismissal from Pixar, but she's the biggest indication that Toy Story 4 could have worked best, drastically improved, if it was presented as an hour-long television special instead of a feature-length film, whereas Toy Story 2 was always intended to be an hour-long direct-to-video feature, but ended up the crown jewel in the company's entire library.
Mr. LePire, how do you think Gabby Gabby compares to Stinky Pete?
You state that Stinky Pete's motivation makes sense to you because he's being denied the thing he's made for. But so is Gabby Gabby. Their motivations lay on the same plane. And so saying one works and the other doesn't make sense at all. She has a stronger motivation because she was taken out of her box. She almost had that taste of being fulfilled, of her purpose being served, and it comes crashing down because she was defective right out the box. No child got that far. For Stinky Pete, he never even got that close. And that drove him crazy. But she became much closer to it than he did, and therefore her loss is much more significant than his. Her not being able to do that is felt much more deeply, much more resonant than Stinky Pete's.
And how about the point of her just all of a sudden switching and she's redeemed and we're supposed to feel good for her?
I think this is something the Toy Story movies specifically do pretty well throughout all their movies, is giving a lot of let me think of how to phrase this real quick. A lot of backstory and at least a little bit of empathy for them. In Toy Story 3, lots of Huggin' Bear is this tyrant. He has a way with words, so he makes the other toys in the daycare feel like they have to obey him. And when you find out his backstory, you actually feel a little bad for him. You're not asked to forgive anything he does because it drove him mad. And Gabby sits in that position where it's about to drive her so crazy, but she does have a heart. She is shown to actually care about children, whereas Lotso, his care for children left when his heart got when he found out he was replaced. Probably a little bit over halfway through Toy Story 3.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Rodriguez, do you have another exhibit to present?
Yes, I do. When I watch a Toy Story movie, I expect to leave the movie theater as a blubbering mass of goo. Tears streaming from my face, snot streaming from my nose, and if I don't leave that way, I expect to be emotionally devastated at some point during the film. Toy Story 2 is a perfect example of this. The flashback sequence revealing how Jessie was abandoned by her owner Emily in a field is one of the most moving sequences I've ever seen. The deep sense of loss and emotion felt with every single moment. We have not literally been Jessie in our lives, but we all know trauma. I distinctly remember watching it with my family in a mostly empty theater on opening night in 1999 and sobbing uncontrollably as it triggered something in me that I wasn't cognizant of. Toy Story 3 upped the ante by making me sob twice in a row. But with Toy Story 4, All the tracks have been laid to end with a resounding emotional impact as Woody and Buzz separate for good, yet throughout all 4 of my viewings of this film, I've never felt that twinge of a tear. I love these characters, and I love their journey, but it never gets me. Instead, I nod in recognition, and that just isn't the same. I want to be hurt by a Toy Story movie. I never want to walk away saying, that was nice. I want a gaping wound that can't be healed.
Objection.
Oh my God.
Can we get the other lawyer a therapist appointed by the
Jeez.
by
This
the
is his
courtroom?
therapy, Bobby.
Yes, it's overruled. he's allowed to blubber as much as he wants. Ryan Rodriguez, you go on, man. You follow your star. Do you have a rebuttal though, Mr. LePire, about the emotional impact of Toy Story 4?
One is Ryan. Are you saying that Tom Hanks is wrong? Because he very famously cried when he was given the new script for Toy Story 4. He cried at the end of it. And that is because this is an actual ending for the toys. Toy Story 3's ending is great and it's brilliant. It is not an ending for the gang. It's not an ending for the toys. If everything we see is through the toys' point of view, then Toy Story 3 is a fantastic ending to Andy's story. The toys are still together. They still can go on adventures, as proven by the various short films that came out between Toy Story 3 and Toy Story 4. But Toy Story 4 is an actual ending. And while I never cried, the only Toy Story movie to make me cry was Toy Story 3. I think this is much more emotionally resonant than Toy Story 2, and I'll get to that in my actual case.
Okay. Mr. Rodriguez, do you have any other
I have 2 more, but since I'm going to shift them a little bit because you brought up the ending, so I did want to address the ending. One of my arguments this week concerns the title. Toy Story 4 is not a Toy Story movie. Not really. This is a Woody movie through and through, and most of the entire ensemble established over the course of 3 films is given the short shrift.
Absolute objection. The entire franchise is Woody's point of view. The opening of Toy Story 1 is the play session, and that's because he's being played with. Toy Story 2, play session. He's being played with. Toy Story 3, PlayStation. He's being played with. And then that devolves into the sort of Andy growing up montage. And then in Toy Story 4, no play session. It opens with a flashback because Woody's no longer being played with. He's always been the center focus of the films. There are other very major and important characters, but the franchise has always belonged to Woody.
He's the overall protagonist, but he takes complete overhaul over the entire film. If you're not in a scene with Woody or Forky, you're not in the movie.
Right. You're saying that Buzz has no impact on Toy Story 4, whereas he does in the other films?
But that's the problem, is that he's in it a lot. He has scenes that are completely by himself, but nobody cares because he's not even close to the main focus of the film. Whereas a lot of Toy Story 1 is a two-hander. Toy Story 3 is a flat-out ensemble picture. He might be the protagonist, but it is an ensemble movie.
I will concede on Toy Story 3 being an ensemble picture. But in terms of that, Toy Story 4 is Buzz realizing he actually doesn't need to rely on Woody, and he can rally the troops, so to speak, in the way Woody taught him to do. Him being on his own is him learning to do that of his own accord, while the ending, as we'll get to, serves as an ending for the group overall.
See, I would say that it serves as an ending for Woody, because the rest of the group could still go on and have adventures. He'll have adventures too, but solo adventures with Bo Peep. Nice. But the rest of the cast could definitely go on and they could have shorts or do whatever the hell they want. But anyway, this is why I still refer to Toy Story as a trilogy. And I do so not to be disdainful. I like the ultimate ending that Woody gets, even if it makes the conclusion of 3 a little hollow. But if anything, 4 is just inessential. If you didn't know that it existed, would anything actually be wrong? The ensemble already got their happy ending, and as far as anyone knew, so did Woody.
Mr. Lapierre?
I agree that the toys could very hypothetically, theoretically, what have you, go on adventures without Woody, but that changes the entire dynamic. It is not the same. What he brings to the toys is no longer there. Therefore, how they interact with each other, how they interact with Bonnie, how they interact with whatever's happening to them would be significantly, absolutely different than if Woody were still there.
But in the beginning of the film, he's basically been put in the closet, and so they're interacting that way for the entire film.
They're interacting only when Bonnie's around. He is still very much part of that. I forget
But Dolly's
the
in
doll's
charge.
name. Is it
Yeah.
just Dolly? I do forget.
Just Dolly.
But she has to remind him that he's not the one to gear them all up and hype them all up for when Bonnie comes back into the room and all that stuff when they're all in the closet because mom has to clean up quick. So he's still in that old habit. So it is still very much a part of them until the end of Toy Story 4.
Okay, well, we'll let the jury decide as to which fulfills that better. Mr. Rodriguez, did you have a last exhibit?
Yes, I have one last exhibit, and it's a long one, so strap in.
So buckle up.
All right.
Let's talk about new characters. Every installment in the series contains them, obviously, some more memorable than others. In Toy Story 2, we have Jessie, the cowgirl companion co-star of Woody's Roundup. Jessie is the Calamity Jane to Woody's Wyatt Earp. This last of both extreme grit and vulnerability, dealing with emotional PTSD after being abandoned in the aforementioned flashback. In addition to providing a type of story that we haven't seen before in these films, Jessie serves as a mirror to Woody's anxieties of never being played with again, multiplied tenfold because unlike Woody, she's actually lost someone that we know of. She's a masterclass in how to approach a self-sustained storyline about trauma while also interlacing the key themes of the film, and she resonates deeply with me for reasons that I don't need to go into here. Jessie's awesome, easily the best character introduced in the entire series after the original film. We also get to meet Barbie for the first time, since she was cut from the original script to the original film when Mattel declined to allow Pixar to take any liberties with the character, and she manages to tie all of the Al's Toy Barn sequences together as the tour guide, allowing for some key humor and exposition, as well as setting up her outstanding role in the third film. Toy Story 4 is practically drowning in new characters, but very few of them approach the impact of Jessie unless we're talking about merchandising potential. The closest the film comes to greatness is Forky, an anthropomorphic spork that Bonnie creates in kindergarten and somehow gains sentience, and Duke Kaboom, the Canadian stuntman who's only good at crashing. Those excellent additions to the ensemble aside, unlike Toy Story 2, Toy Story 4 also adds a couple of characters that serve no real purpose whatsoever, and I'm talking about Ducky and Bunny.
Boo!
Remove these characters whose presence in the film cuts down on the speaking roles for a good chunk of the previously established ensemble, and I'm not sure you actually miss anything, except for a couple of stray pop culture references and one admittedly humorous, if not extraneous, scene in which they plot the murder of the old lady who owns the antique store.
That was pretty good.
Okay, thank you. That is great. That's great.
There are no wasted characters in Toy Story 2. Everyone who comes to play and takes prominence is used to their highest function, just as it should be with a collection of action figures.
Mr. Lapierre, do the characters in Toy Story 4 stand up to the new additions in Toy Story 2?
I agree. Jessie is one of the best characters from the Toy Story films. Any of them. Jessie's an amazing character. I do feel there's a bit of a disconnect due to how subjective comedy is, that you will either find Ducky and Bunny funny or you're probably going to hate them. My wife loves them. She laughs her ass off every time we watch this movie because she just thinks they're hysterical. But if somebody's not laughing at them, if they are not fulfilling that purpose, then they're definitely just going to be annoying. So that one's a little tricky to argue, I think, either way.
Okay. And Mr. Rodriguez, did you rest your case
I
on
do.
that?
I rest my case.
Mr. LePire, you may present your first exhibit.
First, I would like to clear up a little bit of a misconception about Woody's dislike of Buzz in Toy Story 1. See, the cowboy isn't jealous because he's replaced as Andy's favorite toy. Quote, it doesn't matter how often we get played with. It's that we are there for Andy when he wants to play with us. End quote. Woody's angry because Buzz does not know he's a toy and therefore is unable to appreciate the meaning of being the favorite toy and the most played with. It's a crucial distinction that informs Woody's actions for the entire franchise. In Toy Story 4, he gets to expound to Forky, this spork who comes to life through the sheer love and being turned into a toy, the joys of being a toy and what that means. In after Forky jumps out of the RV window, Woody goes after him. On their walk back, he convinces Forky that Bonnie loving him so much is a good thing, by expounding upon him what the virtues of being a toy are. And that is Woody in every single movie. And that'll bring me to the problem in Toy Story 2. Because there's only one problem, but it's huge and it's hard to overlook. I never buy the dilemma for Woody. Woody is taken to an office of Al's where the other Roundup gang people are. That includes Jesse, Bullseye, who is the horse from the show, and Woody's horse from the show, and of course Stinky Pete. He knows them within the movie time, not in the time the audience is watching, for about a day, give or take. I don't buy at any point would he go, quote, who am I to break up the Roundup gang after knowing them for a day? He's so in love with being a toy and being played with, as shown in Toy Story 1, 2, and 4, that this doesn't make any sense. It comes out of nowhere and it destroys any sort of believability the movie has. This is not convincing. Toy Story 4 does something similar in the very beginning in a flashback. Instead of opening on a play session, it's a toy rescue thing with an RC car. And then Bo, we see how Bo disappears from before the start of the third movie. He comes to rescue her, and Bo has to tell Woody that she's not Andy's toy. And he almost gets in the box with her. And then he hears Andy looking and searching for him. So he still stays. So even the love of Woody's life could not convince him to not stay with Andy. How the hell is bloody Stinky Pete going to do it, who he's known for 5 seconds? This hurts my brain and angers me so much.
Angry.
Mr. Rodriguez, was Woody not eternally grateful like the aliens?
Well, I think that in Toy Story 2, he has this feeling that he's never going to be played with again. And I think that he's resigned to this reality where he needs to give up this idea of ownership and surrender. I think that the entire arc of him in Toy Story 2 is all about surrender. And the fact that when he gets his foot polished back up to cover up Andy's name being there, for a while at least, he's comfortable with that because he figures that if he ever got back, Andy wouldn't want him anyway because he's a broken toy. And I think that the entire film plays with that, and whether or not he would strike up a dalliance with this team that he doesn't really know, I can't really speak to that. I can just say that I believe wholeheartedly in his arc, and I think that it is. If I were undergoing an existential crisis as a kid, thinking that my parents would never want to be with me again, I think I would probably hitch my anchor to basically anything that I could find myself solace in or find any purpose whatsoever, if I really thought that my purpose was gone.
So noted. You'll be hearing from my theater troupe soon. Mr. LePire, do you have a further argumentation?
I do. The climax of Toy Story 2 takes place in an airport, and they have to juggle behind the scenes on the little luggage conveyor belts, I guess is the word, which is all great and fun. That moment's great. But then they go on the tarmac of an airport. There are video cameras and workers and all sorts of things they can't control. So either they don't care if they're being seen in one of the most watched, highly public areas you could imagine, or the movie wants me to think the busy airport they've shown me to be busy because Al's complaining about how busy it is isn't as busy as they told me it was.
Mr. Rodriguez, are there some of those Toy Story plot holes in Toy Story 4?
That just, yes, there are. I mean, there's, God. But to speak to this this supposedly well-watched watched over airport, there are certain things that you kind of need to go along with in order to enjoy these movies, such as, why does Woody have teeth? He doesn't eat anything.
To smile.
Why does he have teeth?
To smile.
Yes, but why would he smile when his natural facial expression is a closed mouth? It doesn't make any sense, but you go along with it because it's part of the world. I accept that these toys are going to go places and be in places that where conceivably humans should be able to understand that they're living, but I look at that as a quibble. I don't really look at that as a weakness, because that third act is such a perpetual motion machine that it keeps limber, it keeps going. And every single time you think that it's completely out-topped itself, it raises the stakes again by having them get into a goddamn airplane. I want to see toys get in an airplane. I don't really care if people are around. I just want to see that.
I would buy that if it weren't for the fact that so much of the movies are based upon them having to either don disguises or drop and stop being alive when humans are around. That is the crux of so much of all the films. This one included, when Buzz and the gang going to try to rescue Woody have to cross the street in one of the best, funniest moments in the film, which should be noted, Toy Story 2 is easily the funniest of all four films. This movie's hysterical from start to finish. They disguise themselves as traffic cones and cause a massive pileup because they know they could be seen. You've already shown me that in places where they know will be highly visible, they're going to take the time and care to disguise themselves or remain hidden somehow in the movie I'm watching.
I don't know. I think that the desperation that they have at the end of trying to get all their friends and bring them home no matter what, I think that kind of supersedes whatever concern they would have about getting caught. But also at the same time, we see the people on the tarmac as they're just willy-nilly throwing these bags around into the plane, around on the ground. They don't care because they're not actually paying attention. But again, I'm not going to... getting too far into the weeds is not serving this case whatsoever.
We'll let the jury get into the weeds on that one. Mr. LePire, do you have any other arguments?
I do, and that is what isn't in Toy Story 4. We just discussed disguises. The disguise here is really clever, and it's the only one anybody uses for the entire thing. Bo Peep took a broken down RC car, disguises it as a skunk. So she has free motion to move about wherever she wants. And that's it. There's no more disguises in the film. And I think it's a clever way of showing the evolution and of not just what the toys are capable of, but when you are a quote-unquote lost toy, the sort of things you can come up with to ensure that, one, you're not seen, and two, you can be in a prime spot to be played with when a school bus of children come to the playground and that sort of thing. And more importantly, there's no real retread of plot threads here. Ryan has gone on about Jessie and her amazingly heartbreaking backstory. which is essentially Lotso's backstory. Here, there's
But
no...
Toy Story 3 is not on trial.
No. Toy Story 3 is an amazing masterpiece, and it absolutely has the best moment in any of the franchise. But it's simply a comparison, right? Toy Story 1 does this, so Toy Story 2 did that as well. Toy Story 3 also did that. Toy Story 4 does not, is what I'm getting at. It's the things not present that make it such a refreshing departure and cements that this one is a different adventure.
I would actually.
Mr. Rodriguez?
No, I'll trot back into that. It is in terms of a structure, in terms of mirroring other movies, it doesn't, and that's actually very refreshing. That's one of the things that I enjoy most about the movie, is that it's not trying to be the other movies, which is for sequels, especially your fourth movie, is really quite special.
Okay. Mr. LePire, did you have anything else?
I have one last one, and that's Woody's lost toy evolution. The entire franchise revolves around Woody, because it's not Toy's story, it's Toy Story, singular toy, so it's Woody. And within that, in the first movie, he and Buzz get into a fight at a gas station, get knocked out of the car as they're on their way to Pizza Planet, and Woody is devastated, mournful that he is now a lost toy. In Toy Story 2, again, I just don't buy he would do into that stuff. So, but that doesn't really come up. In Toy Story 3, the army men lose themselves and he doesn't react. He lets them go. He appreciates them, acknowledges them, and then they leave until a fun little in-credit stinger. And he's okay with that. In Toy Story 4, it is Woody realizing that in order for him to feel fulfilled and happy, he doesn't necessarily need a kid, and being a lost toy isn't the death sentence he once feared it is. And that, along with just the sheer power of the sequence where Bo and Woody are reconnected in a wordless moment where a kid is playing with both of them and they get the most subtle smiles on their face, is what makes the ending of Toy Story 4 so impactful. To quote my wife at the end of our latest rewatch for this trial, because we watched all four and the various shorts, she said after watching the whole franchise that there's just no comparison. And she's right, because when you get to that ending and you realize that when Buzz tells Woody she'll be okay, no, I mean Bonnie will be okay, it allows Woody the freedom of still being able to be played with children, but be with somebody he loves and become his own independent toy, which he's very codependent in the other films, and his evolution is getting to that point where he's no longer dependent on a kid to make him feel like himself or feel fulfilled or whole or anything like that. And with that, I rest my case.
Thank you, Mr. LePire. Both sides have rested their cases. Mr. Rodriguez, you may present your closing argument.
I have argued many cases before this very court, this very judge, this very jury, and have taken sides with some films I would much rather have nothing to do with. Tusk immediately comes to mind.
Oh, come on!
And I have prosecuted films that I love dearly. I'm thinking specifically of Xanadu. But I have never had the chance to argue for or against perfection until today. Toy Story 2 is not just a perfect movie, it's the perfect movie. A sterling example of what happens when a team of skilled artisans and storytellers are working at their creative zenith. And when you consider that those artisans and those storytellers were the brain trust of Pixar, possibly the most creative and narratively sound collection of individuals in the history of the medium, it takes on increased significance. It's honestly not even fair to compare Toy Story 2 and Toy Story 4. One is so superior to the other that the fight becomes slanted. But again, I'll leave it to the jury to determine whether or not anyone agrees with me on that point. I think deep down, we all know this is true. Be on the right side of history. When it comes to these dream factory molded films about literal factory molded plastic, Toy Story 2 is the only logical choice. Thank you. Case dismissed.
And Mr. LePire, my favorite deputy, you may present your closing argument.
Imagine, if you will, that you are a teacher. Your classroom consists of 4 students and 4 students only. One day, you give them a surprise quiz, and all 4 ace it. Because really, all the Toy Story movies are worth watching, as they are all of the highest caliber. But 3 of the 4 students also have the time to complete the extra credit question. Those 3 students are Toy Story 1, 3, and 4. Toy Story 2 has a fundamental story flaw, one that is centered to its emotional core, and as such, falls just short of the glorious heights of its peers. Plus, the power of love conquers all.
Okay. Well, thank you both. Mr. Rob Maynard, Mr. Big Ben Haslar, and Dylan J. Schlender, you have all heard the facts
Not a
concerning this
mister.
case. He's not a mister, no.
What?
He had that title removed. Are you a Baron now? Baron Dylan J.
Baron
Schlender.
von Schlender.
I'll take it, I guess.
You have all heard the facts concerning this case. It is now up to you to determine which of these films is superior. The bailiff will escort you to the deliberation room to render your verdict. I didn't really like how these movies make fun of having a snake in your boot. That's how I lost my big toe.
His life gets more tragic every time we encounter him.
That's true. All right, everybody. I just want to go on record. I think this is the most difficult head-to-head that we have done so far. Big Ben, what did you think of the case?
Naturally, I thought Toy Story 2 was the best. And I do strongly agree with prosecutor, I guess he's not a prosecutor in this case, Counselor Rodriguez's argumentation that everyone sort of has something to do in Toy Story 2. And I don't know that that's present in Toy Story 4. And Toy Story, like almost all of them, have this sort of Buzz Lightyear problem where they don't know what to do with him, because in the first one he thought he was a space ranger, and then in every subsequent one they're like, well, what do we do with him? And in this case it's just like the inner voice thing. Like that's his big thing to wrestle with is soundboard.
Buzz is they kind of touched on the ensemble, and like they don't know what to do with Buzz, but I gotta say they don't know what to do with Buzz in any of the sequels. And in 2, all they do is basically lock him in a box and replace him with another fresh model for about 20 minutes of humor.
There's still the original Buzz.
Yes,
so
but he's locked away for a lot of it.
Yeah, but he does lead the charge to go get Woody back. So it's not like the character doesn't have anything to do.
Yeah, and then in the 3rd, he's Spanish and reset and stuff. But I think that 2 and 4 both have the problem of, I mean, Woody is most definitely the main character, and I think all of the other characters are then shoved into an ensemble, including Buzz.
In the sequels, for sure. Yeah, he has more of a presence in the first one.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's really weird how some of the characters interact and don't interact with each other. Like, I don't think Jessie ever like talks to Rex in like Toy Story 2. You know, it's stuff like that that's just weird. Like they're all together.
Why would she?
Well, yeah, I guess why not? Well, I mean, they all get thrown in together. So I want to really look at the cases that were brought forward, because there's 2 very well argued points. Like if you lived in a vacuum and never seen a Toy Story movie, you could. Like Ryan was really selling like it's a perfect movie, and he sounds very believable and convincing, you know. And Bobby brought up great points about Toy Story 4 just being this great capstone to the series. Again, very convincing in believing. I would say Bobby's criticism, though, when he says Toy Story 2 didn't get the extra credit, his problem, he leans on Woody's arc, and he doesn't buy him throwing him with the Roundup gang. But I think Ryan did address that very well by, like, you have to look at where Woody is in his life. He just got wounded, you know, he got put up on the shelf. He knows what that means. You know, he has that
and then he left for cowboy camp without him.
Yeah, exactly. Like this huge thing, like that would be like doing a Reels of Justice episode without Maynard, you know? So I would see, like, he would totally
get it done.
Yeah. You know?
I'm going to Japan.
I'm kidding.
No, and so
but here's what I do want to say,
have
though.
an existential crisis.
I just want to touch on that.
Go for it. Yeah.
Is that when I watched 2, I had agreed with Bobby. I didn't believe that Woody would so readily be willing to leave Andy, and I do think Ryan's argument swayed me that he is so injured from the way Andy basically does mistreat him in 2 and leaves him, even if he doesn't know that's not exactly how Andy feels.
Plus, Jesse gives that big sob story, right?
Yes,
wow,
Yeah.
you
and
really
I
need
think
a friend,
his,
don't you?
I think his connection and empathy towards Jesse was understated by Bobby.
Yeah, I mean, he's finally seeing a toy that kind of looks like him too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that you can relate to that. I mean, it's like when Rex meets Trixie. You know what I mean? That's or Mr. Potato meets Mrs. Potato Head. So that's something that's established in the series. You know, likes like. You know, and you know,
I think he's
so,
also enamored with the TV show. The idea that he starred in the TV show.
yeah.
And that he actually has this rich history. He's
And-
not just a cowboy. He's as cool
Which,
as
how does
Buzz.
he not remember that? How does he not remember being
let's
unpackaged?
not go that deep into this right now, Ben. But I would say, and then too, when Buzz does confront him and the other toys confront him, obviously he gets that lightning bolt moment, like, "Oh my God, what am I doing? Jesse, come with us. Bullseye, come with us. Stinky Pete, come with us." And that's like, you're like, yes, yeah, he's come around. He's got over the slump. And I
Kelsey
love
Grammer, hell
Oh,
yeah!
I love Kelsey Grammer and that. And I like the airport scene. And let's remember, this is 1999. This is before 9/11. So I could buy that it would be that lax.
Actually, I want to speak to that.
Please.
For how much the toys in 4 are, I mean, they're talking to characters, right? Then Buzz goes, you left your backpack in the antique store, you know, and they're pulling down pedals. I mean, they are far more interactive with humans than they would be in 2. I do want to talk about the villains, though.
Hidden in a cupboard.
Get out of here! I do want to talk about the villains, though, too.
Sure.
You know, we did touch on Stinky Pete versus, say, Gabby. And, you know, Ryan kind of brought up that we're not sure why we would switch on a dime, but she gives a speech about how she wants to love, and you believe it, and then she goes out and she does it. So even if you're a little hesitant on her, the moment that she goes and rescues that crying girl in the park, I think you're on her side.
Well, and remember, they're toys. They're not humans. So, like, their emotional capacities and desires are very different. I mean, Forky spends most of his movie trying to throw himself away. You know what I mean? It's like, if he was a human doing this, he would be institutionalized. So I think, who's the foreman?
I am.
Oh, well, then I'll do you a favor. I'll lock in my first vote. This was a great head-to-head. It really was. But you know what? Toy Story 2 gets it for me. By a bit. You know, if this was Toy Story 2 versus Toy Story 3, I'd probably be saying Toy Story 3. But I think what Ryan had to say in his response, his overall argumentation, it won the day. It won the day for me. So I'm going with Toy Story 2.
You were really not a surprise to me anyway. So, Big Ben, which way are you going?
They're both good, so make no mistake there. I did enjoy them. And every time I'm watching a successive Toy Story sequel, I'm thinking, this doesn't need to be made. And then by the end, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm all right with it. And that applies to Toy Story 4 as well. But Toy Story 2 does feel like more of a cohesive unit to me. I like that. Ducky and Bunny and Duke Kaboom, like they feel very superfluous and not necessary. They both have plot holes in them that drive me nuts. So it's sort of a
oh, you mean the movies?
Like,
I was about to say there better not be a plot hole in Ducky and Bunny. I mean, they just hold hands all.
No, like
They're
Toy Story
great.
4 is like the sentience of the toys. Like, how does that work? They were about to explain it and then don't.
I mean, once it's love.
So yeah.
Yes.
So tallying it all up, it's Toy Story 2, not even close.
All right. So what I have to say doesn't matter. But I think I'm going to get Bobby put up a good case. So I'm going to lean towards Toy Story 4. It is really nice and pretty. It's got Ducky and Bunny. It looks gorgeous.
Oh, it is a beautiful.
Yeah,
Well,
it
that's
looks
not
gorgeous.
a surprise, Maynard.
It
It's
looks
the best looking
gorgeous.
Pixar movie, period.
Yeah, it looks gorgeous. Whereas 2 has still got the growing pains of the Pixar technology that like whenever you see a human
Even
or a
then,
dog.
I thought it was bad.
Yeah.
Like back in the day, I thought it was like, that's PlayStation
Yeah,
graphics.
but
Like, why would anyone watch
luckily
an
you
hour of
mostly
this?
stick with
Well, in
the
1999.
yeah, but it's
Except for
it's,
the toys. The toys look great, but
it's
the
sweet
backgrounds
to
look
me.
terrible.
The Gabby moment with the little girl is really sweet. Buddy, Woody getting to kind of ride off in the sunset and get his girl and making himself happy instead of someone else. I think that's enough. But I think we still came up with a good verdict, but I do want to go with 4 so that we're not unanimous. Let's get out and tell that very handsome judge.
To the courtroom and beyond. Oh, that is me, isn't it?
Yes.
Mr. Foreman, have you reached the verdict?
That is me, isn't it? We have, Your Honor. In the case of Toy Story 2 versus Toy Story 4, we find in favor of, and it was close, Toy Story 2.
The verdict is so rendered. Toy Story 2 is hereby decreed to be the better film in all listicles and beyond, but you are all sad, strange little men, and you have my pity. The court is adjourned.
That was good, man. Well, hello there. This is Tunzo Cuddles Bear reporting outside the Reels of Justice. Ryan Luis Rodriguez, why don't you come on over here and give me a hug?
No. But, thank you. Tunzo, you said that was your name?
Yes, Tunzo Cuddles Bear. Now, how do you feel about that there verdict? It went your way.
It did. I'm actually kind of surprised by that because I think that Bobby might have actually had the better case. But I'm glad that this worked out this way. I still think that 2 is the superior film by far. And I'm clearly never going to see this eye to eye with Bobby, but I respect his opinion, and I'm glad we had this discussion.
Well, all right. Isn't that just swell of you? Speaking of which, Bouncin Bobby LePire, why don't you bounce yourself on over here and talk to me a bit about this verdict?
Oh, so he gets a hug offer. I don't.
Well, now, Bobby, you know that's not true. You just come on in and give me a big old hug right now.
Squeeze.
There you go. That's nice. Now you smell like strawberries.
My favorite fruit.
No, you don't smell like strawberries. You have to smell like a different kind of fruit.
Oh, now you smell like pomegranates.
Okay, intellectually distinct.
Now, Bobby, quit that chuckling and tell me what you think about today's verdict.
I am utterly okay with it. I know I came in swinging for Toy Story 4 because it is my favorite of all the Toy Story movies, but Toy Story 2 is a great movie. I cannot get mad at anybody agreeing with that.
Well, all right then. Well, this has been Tunzo Cuddles Bear reporting for you outside the Reels of Justice. Let's go back to that there studio for post-trial analysis and maybe a couple extra hugs.
Don't touch me. Don't touch me.
Yeah, none for me.
No, so we know now. I just want to go, Ryan. You think the second one is the best one? Bobby,
Yes.
You think the fourth one's the best one?
Yes.
Big Ben, what do you think's the best one?
It's between 2 and I don't know. I don't want to say.
Come on,
1, 2,
say.
and 3 are kind of 1, 2, and 3 are equal in my head, really, because they all pull me in different moments. So not one size fits all. But then 4 is just like a step below of those 3 for me.
Dylan, which one?
I'm locking in Toy Story 3 as my favorite by a lot.
See, I think Toy Story 3 is my favorite too. I rewatched it for this, and I think it does a lot of what 2 does, but very well. And I think it does a lot of what 4 does as well, too, as far as the themes of trash and everything. So I don't know if the court would be interested in hearing Toy Story 1 versus Toy Story 3 someday.
They hold hands in a fire.
Oh, it's so
No,
good.
it's
It's
very
so
good.
sad.
It's very good.
It's just too bad that claw comes in and as a kind of Deus Ex Machina. That kind of kills it. But otherwise, yeah, just really good. But Ducky and Bunny are great. I don't care what anyone says.
No,
I love
that
Ducky
joke
and
about
Bunny.
how they're going to kill people. That's good. Everything else is just them like riffing off like, yeah, sell it, brother. That's like their whole thing.
It's funny.
nothing.
They kick and buzz over and over in the head. It's funny.
To infinity
I
in my
love
foot.
Ducky
What does
and
that
Bunny.
even mean? That's stupid.
I love Ducky and Bunny, but I can't argue for somebody who has different comedic sensibilities than me. Comedy is so refined
Subjective.
to individual tastes that there's no argument for or against that, to be honest.
Yeah, but I found Ducky and they are superfluous. Ryan's right. They add nothing to the story at all, besides just sort of comic.
Kaboom
relief.
at least has something to do.
Yeah, but anyway, great case, and I still would like to hear Toy Story 1 versus Toy Story 3 one day. But Bobby, what has been keeping you busy? What have you been up to?
Sundance and Slamdance Film Festivals just wrapped up. So it was a lot of watching, editing, and writing reviews for that.
For Film Threat? Okay,
For Film Threat, yes. So that was extremely busy. Just went to a movie premiere in Torrington for a new puppet starring movie called Bernice 2. That was a ton of fun. They had a live band and they had the various puppet stars that you could get pictures with. That was pretty awesome.
That's the same company that we saw.
Yes, the Elmwood Productions, they made Head, and we saw them in October.
Yeah. And so is what's the World of Film Threat had for you otherwise?
Just did an interview with a filmmaker who's opening a new film studio in New York State. So that's kind of awesome to get in on that. And then we're prepping for South by Southwest Film Festival. It is partly virtual, partly physical in Austin, Texas, but we're not sending anybody there to cover it physically, so it's going to be a whole bunch of screener links.
Oh, okay, cool. So that coverage should start soon, depending on when this comes out anyway. So I don't know, what is that going to be, mid-March?
I believe it starts March 11th. I don't have the dates in front of me. I believe it's
that's it. That's in the past, I believe. I'm pretty sure. I may have to double check my schedule, but that already happened. Ryan. Now, Bobby, we always ask for recommendations from our guests for people for movies that you think people should check out. So, what is a movie that our listeners should check out?
Today, I bring with me Monster in Paris. It is set in 1910 Paris, France. It's a CGI animated family musical about a science experiment gone wrong that creates a giant flea who's the titular monster, but he's actually really nice and he loves to sing. So our heroes have to band together and save him from an unscrupulous, power-hungry mayor who just wants to kill him at all costs. This is set during the actual flooding of the Seine River in 1910, and they do a really creative, fun way of solving that at the end of the film.
Oh, that is a great recommendation, Bobby. My kids like that one. That's one that gets put on from time to time. That's a good
really?
One.
Fleas are not nice, though. I do want to say that from experience.
Well, yeah, it bites a lot of people. No, it doesn't. he is just a good guy.
But no, that sounds really insane.
I don't know if I call it insane. It's really sweet and good natured. It's just cute and fun.
That's the name of the river, Bobby.
Oh my God. The pun just went right over me.
Exactly.
I wish it went over my head.
We should all be so lucky.
No. Ryan, you are a very victorious and very handsome lawyer today. So what is your recommendation?
I dispute the handsome part, but thank you, sir. My recommendation this week is another Pixar movie, nowhere near my favorite, but it is the most recent, and that is 2021's Luca. It is a delightfully cute little confection about a young sea monster who just wants to hang around Italy with his best friend and maybe win a scooter. It's completely unassuming in its lightness, contains no real heavy conflict to speak of, and just sets about creating an atmosphere that I wouldn't hate to live in, kind of like an airy, lightweight Studio Ghibli movie. And it's currently streaming on Disney+.
Disney.
You are so right. Luca is kind of like a Ghibli movie. I like Luca a lot, though. I thought it was great.
And nominated for
so
Best
cute.
Animated.
It's so
Luca
cute.
is super adorable.
It's about the power of friendship. It's so good.
Big Ben, what is your recommendation?
Some of you may know that Totoro makes an appearance in Toy Story 3 in Bonnie's room, yet it is suspiciously absent in Toy Story 4. While the two films we're discussing have forgotten about the Totoro, I remember you, Totoro, which is why my recommendation is Hayao Miyazaki's My Neighbor Totoro. While not my absolute favorite of the Ghibli bunch, I'm more of a Princess Mononoke man, but My Neighbor Totoro is still no schlub when it comes to the ability to tug at my heartstrings. The story is about two young girls who move in with their father to the countryside, and the villagers believe their house to be haunted. And as we peel back the layers on this family, we find out that the girls are dealing with a lot emotionally as their sick mother is in the hospital, while simultaneously they're encountering magical beings in the forest. Are the girls just playing make-believe, or are the spirits of Japan watching over them in their moments of need? If you don't know, then head out over to HBO Max or your local Blu-ray retailer to find out.
As my favorite Ghibli character, May. I love May so much.
Man, I tell you, that is there's no bad Ghibli movies, and especially no bad.
Not a bad Miyazaki film, at any rate.
No bad
Exactly,
Miyazaki.
because
Ghibli
Earwig
movies.
is less.
Oh, it's atrocious.
Oh, well, maybe I spoke too soon. No bad Miyazaki movies then.
Nope,
unless you count his son's movie.
Yeah, that was a Goro Miyazaki, I think, Earwig.
Yeah.
Dylan, do you have a recommendation?
You know what I do, and man, I got just the quality of the recommendations tonight have been fantastic, and so I'm going to keep it going in that vein. It's no secret that the success of Pixar was really what allowed a lot of these Miyazaki movies to kind of make their way over to the States, and one of them that maybe has been overlooked. I don't want to be so pretentious, say, "Oh, the one you haven't heard of," but it wasn't as big as Spirited Away, and that's Porco Rosso, which came out in 1992. And that's also directed by our boy Hayao Miyazaki, and it is just this delightful historical fantasy movie. It's bizarre to explain. A World War I pilot is cursed to be a pig man, and he
Cursed.
yeah, and he's a kind of like a bounty hunter, mercenary of the sky. He fights other sky pirates to make sure they can't rob people, and it's a classic Miyazaki movie because you have a compelling heroine, you have the hero, you have bad guys becoming allies, you have just this really lived-in world where it almost feels like maybe you missed something, but everything is explained and comes back to you, and it's just a treasure of a movie and very delightful to watch every time.
I absolutely love it. I totally agree.
Yeah.
I shit you not. That is the movie I just finished watching before coming on here to record.
Oh, what did you think, Bobby?
Oh, I've seen it before. I adore it.
Oh, okay. Oh, good. Yeah, it's just all of the Miyazaki movies are pretty tremendous, but I think Porco Rosso sometimes might not get as much love as the other ones.
I do agree with that.
I'm the only one here. I've only seen one Ghibli movie, and it was Totoro.
And that's a good first one to see, though.
I haven't seen others. Well, it was a while
That's a
ago too.
standard one.
It didn't necessarily make me want to run out and watch the rest of them. There weren't that many robots, which I was kind of
You
disappointed
need to
about.
watch Castle
that's
in
right.
the Sky.
Castle in the
Robots,
Sky,
other ones,
yes.
Castle in the Sky.
Okay,
Castle in the
I'll
Sky,
put that on my
Favorite
next then.
movie of his.
Are there mean robots? They're not.
Oh
nice.
yeah. Oh,
Okay,
dude, I
good.
love Castle in the Sky. I love when the bad guys are in the mining town and the miner guy like puffs up and gets super jacked, and the other guy gets super jacked, and they start punching each other.
Yep.
Got
Oh, man.
spoilers though.
And Nausicaa has monsters, like little worm monsters and stuff. Those,
Okay.
That's
I
true.
like that.
Yeah,
Well, yeah,
Spirited
send
Away
me
has
your
monsters.
Studio Ghibli monsters. I did like Totoro because it had that cat bus, so I was cool with that.
You like Spirited
So
Away.
I'll send us on home. Back in my day, we didn't have none of these fancy schmancy computer movies like Toy Story to make us cry. If we wanted to bawl our eyes out, we had to watch hand-drawn animation. Like my recommendation today, 1988's The Land Before Time. Combining the greatness of cartoons with the awesomeness of dinosaurs, The Land Before Time is a true kids' classic. It tells the story of Littlefoot, a long-necked dinosaur, or sauropod, as they say, on a journey to the Great Valley after losing his mother, and he is joined by 4 little dino companions, and together they must avoid dangerous sharp teeth and other assorted disasters along the way. It's a total tearjerker in the vein of Disney's Bambi, except it has dinosaurs, which obviously makes it a lot better. And if you enjoyed the original, there are 13 sequels and a TV show to follow up on. The Land Before Time is currently streaming on Peacock.
Have you seen them all the Land Before Time movies?
Ask me again in about 2 weeks.
I have.
Okay.
I've seen all of them, but I haven't seen the TV show.
Yes, you do
Yeah,
have
what's
to.
the TV show, Maynard? When was that on?
It's after like 8 or 9. They do the TV show.
Oh, okay.
I think it was on Cartoon
Striking
Network.
while the iron's hot.
Yeah. Well, it was only one. It was only one season. It's about
So
like
when
26
you said
episodes. Or so.
2D animation and Heartbreak, I definitely thought you were going to go with Plague Dogs.
Oh,
No,
Jesus.
silly.
God, that would be a good one, though.
Grave of the
Oh,
Fireflies.
so
Wow.
sad.
Oh, yeah.
God, Grave of
Oh.
the Fireflies. Jesus.
Watership Down.
Yeah, Watership Down's
Yeah.
not as sad as the other two, but it's up there, yeah.
I don't know. It's pretty sad.
No vivisection in Watership Down, but
You're not wrong.
Yeah, but Bigwig.
That's the
They
bar.
have Bigwig.
I love
But with that, we are all out of show. But we want to thank our guest, Bouncin Bobby LePire, for joining us. Thank you so much, Bobby.
Thank you for having me yet again, and I'll be happily come back whenever you want me to talk.
We will
more
have
about
you
the
back
anime.
again sooner than we did before. Which is this? Is this your 5th time on?
Village, Babadook, Cool World. I was
Justice League.
What was that?
Just
Daimajin versus
you
Daimajin
and
2.
Jury.
it.
All right, so this is your 5th appearance. 5th appearance, but fourth case.
Yes.
So watch out, Jeremy Black. because Bouncin Bobby is coming for you.
A new member of the Five Timers Club.
Yes, exactly. You get a jacket. And we hope everyone else will join us at least 5 more times as the reels of justice keep turning.
Count it.
Plastic.
Please follow us on Twitter at Reels of Justice, Instagram Reels of Justice, and Facebook.com/Reels of Justice.